You think you want sex, that it will calm the ache in your chest, silence the restlessness, make you feel alive for a moment. But what if you're wrong? Not because desire is wrong, desire is holy. It's a fire that keeps you human, but because the thing you're chasing with your body was never meant to be answered through skin. Look closer. That emptiness doesn't show up when you're denied pleasure. It shows up right after you get it. After the climax, after the high. That sinking hollowness, the one you pretend not to feel. It whispers something you're too afraid to name. This wasn't it, because what you really want can't be touched. You don't crave sex. You crave connection. Real connection. The kind that doesn't start with a swipe or end with unread messages. You want someone to look at you and see through the performance, to hold the messy, insecure, scared version of you without pulling away. You want someone who doesn't just touch your body, but reaches into your soul and says you're safe here. But that kind of intimacy doesn't come easy. It demands truth, and truth is terrifying. So instead you settle. You take what the world offers, fast pleasure, hollow affirmation, another night, another name, and for a second it works. The loneliness quiets. You feel desired. You feel something. But the silence always returns. The ache comes back, because sex without connection is a sugar rush, a chemical escape. It lights up your nervous system and then drops you into emptiness. And yet you keep going back. Not because you're addicted to sex, but because you're starving for something you've forgotten how to ask for. Carl Jung once said that loneliness doesn't come from being alone. It comes from not being able to express what matters to you, and that's what's killing you. Not the absence of people, the absence of being understood, of being seen, of being known without needing to perform. And when that kind of hunger meets a world obsessed with appearances and performance, you start mistaking being wanted for being loved. You let people use your body just so you can feel close to something real. You laugh at things that hurt. You stay quiet when you should speak. You say yes when everything inside you says no, just to avoid the sting of rejection. And little by little you become convinced that this is all you're worth, that this is what intimacy is. Bargaining, pretending, pleasing, settling. But it's not. Wanting to be wanted is not the same as wanting to be loved. Being wanted is about hunger. Being loved is about presence. One consumes you, the other sees you. One takes, the other stays. And that's the core of it, isn't it? You don't want someone to devour you. You want someone to see you fully and still choose to stay. But here's the painful truth. That kind of connection only happens when you stop hiding, when you stop trying to impress, when you drop the act and let your unfiltered self be seen. The doubts, the rage, the softness, the need. But that's terrifying, because what if they see you and leave? What if they see you and laugh? What if you open yourself and no one wants what's underneath? So you don't take that risk. You play the game. You stay surface level. You trade your truth for safety and your soul for attention. And yet some part of you, the quiet part, still hopes, still longs, still believes that somewhere out there, or maybe somewhere inside, a deeper connection is possible. That you could be held, not just touched, known, not just liked, loved, not just wanted. That's the ache that no orgasm can fix. That's the hunger no body can satisfy. And that's what we're going to talk about next. Why so many of us stay stuck in this loop of craving and crashing, and why the thing we run from the most, emotional vulnerability, is the only thing that can actually set us free. You say you want connection, but every time it gets close you run. Not literally, maybe. You still text, you still smile, you still go through the motions. But inside, you've already shut the door. You pull away before you can be hurt. You joke when things get too serious. You change the subject when your heart starts to show. And you call it independence. You call it standards. You call it freedom. But it's fear. Plain and brutal. Fear of being seen. Fear of being judged. Fear of needing something you can't control. Deep down you're terrified of love. Not the version you see in movies, but the real kind. The kind that demands exposure. The kind that requires you to take off the armor you've worn since childhood. Because real connection isn't soft. It's raw. It scrapes. It reveals. It holds up a mirror and asks, can you love yourself enough to let someone in? And most people can't. Not because they don't want to, but because they never learned how. They were taught to perform, not to connect. to achieve, not to feel, to earn love by being useful, beautiful, agreeable. So when someone looks at them with genuine care, they don't know what to do with it. It feels foreign, uncomfortable, suspicious. So they push it away or sabotage it before it can leave them first. Sound familiar? You're not alone. Most people mistake their emotional defenses for personality traits. They say, I'm just not affectionate, or I'm a private person, or I don't do emotions. But those aren't truths, they're wounds, they're strategies, coping mechanisms, responses to pain you never finished processing. And until you see that, you'll keep choosing lovers who don't really see you, people who match your mask, not your heart. You'll keep feeling lonely in bed. You'll keep wondering why it never feels right. Carl Jung said people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. And that's exactly what happens in modern relationships. We trade truth for comfort, depth for distraction, intimacy for aesthetics. We ghost, we bench, we breadcrumb, all because we're terrified of being rejected for who we really are. So we curate ourselves instead. We become palatable, likable, safe. And in doing so, we bury the very things that make real love possible. You want deep connection? Then stop performing. Stop trying to be what you think they'll want. Be what's real, even if it's messy, especially if it's messy. Because connection doesn't happen through perfection. It happens through vulnerability, through risk, through courage. But here's the twist. Vulnerability isn't just about crying or talking about trauma. It's about presence. It's about staying when your instinct is to flee, listening when your ego wants to defend, showing your truth when everything in you screams to hide. And this is the paradox. The thing you want most, deep soul-level connection, lives on the other side of the thing you avoid most, emotional nakedness. So if you keep choosing people who don't meet you there, it's not because you're unlucky, it's because you're afraid. Afraid of what will happen if you actually let yourself be loved. Because love, real love, changes you. It forces you to see yourself. It digs up what you've buried. It invites you to heal, not through isolation, but through reflection. And for many, that's too much. So they go back to what feels safer, the casual, the temporary, the surface. But you're here because something in you is done with that. You're done settling for sex when what you really want is to be known. You're done pretending you're fine when your soul is starving. You're done playing the game. Now comes the real question. Are you willing to stop running? Because until you are, nothing will change. You will keep attracting people who reflect your fear, not your truth. But the moment you stay, really stay, when love knocks, the pattern breaks. And that is what we will face next. What it actually means to stay, to open, to connect. And how doing so will force you to confront the parts of you that still believe you are unworthy of love. Because that right there is the root. You don't just fear intimacy, you fear you are not enough to receive it. Let's go there next. This isn't just about connection. It never was. It's about worth. That aching, heavy question at the root of it all. Am I enough? Not when you're dressed up, not when you're achieving, not when you're performing, but as you are. Stripped of all masks. That's the fear, that if someone really saw the unfiltered version of you, the insecure thoughts, the weird habits, the moods you don't post online, they'd walk away. That love would vanish the moment you stop trying to earn it. And so you stay locked in performance. You keep trying to be impressive instead of honest. You polish your image and silence your needs. You flirt with attention but never show your soul. You confuse attraction with intimacy, approval with connection, validation with love. And every time someone gets close, you panic, because now the mask might crack. You want to be chosen, but you've only ever shown the version of you that feels acceptable. So even when someone says, I care about you, some part of you whispers they don't know the real me. If they did, they'd leave. That voice, it's old. Maybe it came from childhood, maybe from rejection, maybe from never feeling fully welcomed as you are. But wherever it came from, it's still speaking, and it's lying. Because here's the truth. Your worth has never been tied to your performance. You don't need to be desirable to be lovable. You don't need to be perfect to be held. But because the world rewards appearance over depth, Most people live as if love has to be earned through excellence, through sex appeal, through productivity, through silence. And so the deepest parts of you, the soft parts, the scared parts, the grieving parts stay hidden. You keep them locked away like they're shameful, but they're not. They're human, they're sacred, and ironically, they're the very parts that create true connection, not your achievements, not your confidence, but your cracks, your tenderness, your truth. Carl Jung said the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are, and that means facing the parts of yourself you've learned to reject, the parts that feel too needy, too emotional, too much, because until you do, you'll keep chasing relationships where you have to earn love instead of receive it. You'll keep being drawn to people who only see your surface, because that's all you're willing to show. And worst of all, you'll keep mistaking emotional starvation for chemistry. But the truth is, the hunger you feel isn't for sex or attention, it's for acceptance, for someone to meet you where you are and say, "You don't have to be anything else, I see you, I'm here." But before anyone can give you that, you have to give it to yourself. That's the hardest part. You want someone to prove you're worthy, but no one can convince you of a truth you've already decided to deny. So this is your real work now, to turn inward, to face the voice that says you're not enough, and say, "I hear you, but I'm not listening anymore." To stop negotiating your self-worth with the outside world, to stop offering your body when what your soul craves is belonging, because until you believe you are enough, you will keep looking for people who confirm your doubt. But once you accept your wholeness, even with the cracks, even with the mess, everything changes. You stop chasing, you start choosing, and you finally become available for the kind of love that doesn't require you to shrink. In the next segment, we'll talk about that kind of love, the love you become ready for when you stop running, stop performing, and start showing up fully. We'll talk about how deep connection is not something you find, it's something you create, but only when you believe that what you bring to the table is already enough, because it is. It always has been. There's a moment, if you're brave enough, where everything shifts, not because you finally found the right person, not because you suddenly became healed or perfect or fearless, but because you stopped abandoning yourself. You stopped waiting to be chosen. You stopped trying to earn what you were already worthy of. And that's when real connection begins. Not in the magic of a perfect match, but in the quiet decision to show up as your full self. No mask, no act, no selling yourself short to be liked. That kind of love doesn't fall into your lap. It's not an accident. It's not destiny. It's a choice, one that begins with radical honesty. And here's the truth most people never hear. Deep connection isn't something you find, it's something you allow. It grows in the space where truth is spoken, even when your voice shakes. It builds when you stay present through the awkward, the vulnerable, the unsexy moments, when you let someone see your bad days and your broken pieces, and you don't flinch. That's intimacy, not just being naked, but being known, not just being wanted, but being witnessed. And for that you need more than chemistry. You need courage, because it takes courage to sit across from someone who sees your fear and still chooses to stay. It takes courage to love someone not for their perfection, but for their depth. And it takes even more courage to receive that kind of love without pushing it away, without sabotaging it, without doubting you deserve it. Carl Jung once wrote that wholeness is not achieved by cutting off the parts of yourself you dislike, but by integrating them. And that's the root of real love, integration, not the fantasy of being completed by someone else, but the reality of meeting as two complete people, honest about their wounds, responsible for their triggers, open to growth. You don't need someone to save you. You need someone who meets you in the work, who doesn't idolize you, but respects you, who doesn't fix you, but supports your evolution. That's connection. That's the antidote to the cycle you've been stuck in. No more chasing people who only want your body. No more shrinking to be less needy. No more calling attention love and silence peace. You've seen through it now. You know what you want. You want soul over performance, depth over aesthetics, truth over convenience. And now you have a choice. Go back to the game, or build something real. That something real won't be easy. It will trigger you. It will expose the parts of you still healing. It It will challenge your old patterns and ask you to love in ways you never learned. But it will also anchor you. It will grow you. It will remind you over and over again that you never needed to prove yourself. You only needed to be yourself. And once you realize that, everything changes. You stop chasing attention and start honoring your energy. You stop begging to be seen and start choosing people who see you. You stop settling for half love, half presence, half connection, because now you understand the full version exists. And more importantly, you understand that you're worthy of it. You always were. So here's your invitation. Stop performing, stop hiding, stop waiting. Let yourself be seen. Let yourself be loved, not for the role you play, but for the human you are. Because once you show up whole, the love you've always craved will no longer feel impossible. It will feel inevitable. Not because it arrived, but because you finally did. And if that truth hits something deep, say it out loud, write it, anchor it, because the moment you name it, you begin to live it. This is not the end of the story. It's the beginning of a different one, the one where you don't just long for connection, you create it, one honest moment at a time,